Hello everyone and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I am broadcasting to you live from rainy Budapest, capital city of Hungary, Central Europe, where fall weather is kicking in. We are continuing with our course sessions today. It is course session 12 in fact today, which is focusing on IELTS reading. We are looking at academic IELTS reading, but if you're a general IELTS student, the same strategies apply. And remember that section 3 in general IELTS is very, very similar to the 3 sections of academic IELTS. So today we will be looking at the last few kinds of specific questions for the reading section. And again, as usual, our materials are coming from our website. So if you're studying for academic IELTS, I strongly recommend going to aehelp.com and joining our full course there. It's a good idea to spend a little bit of money to save a lot. I know a lot of students are searching for free IELTS materials, but when you're doing something so important as IELTS, which has such a huge impact on your life, it's really worthwhile spending a little bit of money and getting quality materials to help you succeed on the test. And that way you don't have to take it again and again and pay that very expensive $300 registration fee. So again, it's wise to spend a little, save a lot. If you're studying for general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. We have lots of practice exams, lesson videos, fully interactive course for your phone, tablet, computer, and also download our academic IELTS Help app from your Google Play Store. So check us out there. Hi everyone who's joining. Hi Jeffrey, I saw you in there. Hi Jat Ray. Hi Vikash. Hi Shreejith. Hi Edward. Pachu. Good to see you. Yes, Jeffrey, Budapest indeed is difficult even in the, or is beautiful even in the rain. All right, so again, just a couple of important points as we get going. If you have any IELTS related questions or you want to book a mock IELTS speaking interview, get some feedback on how you can improve your speaking, you can always contact me at my email, adrian@aehelp.com. That's my name, adrian@aehelp.com. You also have editing, correction, and feedback services for IELTS Task 1 and Task 2 on the websites. And as usual, we are in Central European time for our broadcast. So this is our schedule from the 4th to the 16th. You can check that out on the channel as well. Today we're doing part 12 of the adapted course. Tomorrow we're doing a members chat. And then we have several more classes all the way up until Monday and Tuesday, 10th and 11th. These 2 days we're going to take a 2-day pause and then back full speed with another set of 5 classes. All right. I see that Magda, you're asking me about true, false, not given type questions. That's Magda Brachvaj. We just did that class 2 days ago. So check out the YouTube channel. 2 days ago we had covered the true, false, not given type of question. But you're in luck because today we're going to be looking at yes, no, not given, which is pretty much the same idea. All right, so again, just a quick peek here. If you're looking for academic IELTS, this page here with the blue background, aehelp.com, general IELTS, the green background, gieltshelp.com. Okay, so let's start with a bit of reading, warm up your English, warm up your reading skills. We read this at the end of class day before yesterday. So this is a little bit of a review. It is a passage 3. This is a more difficult passage, certainly, but you need to practice difficult passages as well, not just easy ones. Be very careful with your IELTS school materials. Sometimes they're a little bit easier than the actual test. This passage is definitely the same level of difficulty. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, when you have a reading passage in IELTS, Do remember, if you have a picture, it's there to help you. You don't have color, so it would be black and white. But regardless, it's there to help you. So look at the picture carefully. Don't just dismiss the picture. Pay attention to what it's showing you. It's usually the topic related to the details of what you're going to read, and pay attention to the title. Too many times students have this really bad reading strategy where they just look at the questions right away and then they start searching for the answers. That's a big no-no. So for all those students who need to get 6.5 on IELTS or more, that is not the correct way to do the reading section by looking at questions and trying to search for answers. It just doesn't work. So the better way, look at the title, immediately read the title, Causes of the American Economic Crisis. Then once you've read the title, ask, okay, what is this about? So it's about the American economic crisis. Okay, what is that? Hopefully most of you remember that in 2008, there was a collapse of the American economy because of the housing market. Why are we talking about this? To understand what causes economic troubles for a country. And how does this happen? Anybody know how economic problems happen? So what are the key factors that lead to economic difficulties for many countries? It's a good question to answer before you begin reading. So Jignesh, what causes that financial breakdown in a country? And by the way, this is really good information to know for your future, not just for IELTS. So Mohammed says inflation goes up. So more simply put, Mohammed, it's just simply inflation occurs, right? So the cost of goods and services increases rapidly, but the amount of money people make does not. Alperin says, well, mortgage, so the housing market can lead to this. Yes, because it's one of the biggest expenses, if not the biggest expense that any person makes during their life, buying their house. So that's a big one. After says it's bad policy making for the economy. So After says, well, it's simply people making bad policies. Who makes those bad policies, Aftar Kumar? Well, banks, so businesses can create bad policies that lead to financial trouble, right? Irresponsible lending, lending to people who cannot pay back the money. Governments can make bad policies as well. So that's right, Murasa, banking policies, right? So when that happens and people cannot pay back their debt, then of course lending has to stop. So banks stop lending money, institutions stop lending money. When lending stops, people spend less. When people spend less, people make less money. So everything kind of goes in this downward spiral, and eventually it hits a threshold where there's a complete economic collapse. That's right. So hopefully you can think of most of that kind of information when you look at the title of your reading passage, okay? So look at the title, ask what, why, how. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's read. I'm going to play the audio in our course. We have audio for all of our reading passages to help you improve your reading. So here we have a British person reading this passage. Please read with them. Pay attention to the information as much as possible, because we will use these or use this information for the questions after. So here we go.
In discussing the causes of the late 2000s American subprime mortgage crisis, it is easy to lay all the blame on the banks, but it is incorrect to claim innocent the individual homebuyers involved, as well as the American government as a whole. There are many instances in the years leading up to the crisis where moral obligations failed to be met. For the homebuyers, it is a case of ignoring a scenario which was, upon deeper inspection, too good to be true. For the bankers, it was falling prey to their own laissez-faire loaning policies, lending without giving much interest to the mandates required of the borrower. For the government, it was instituting such a laissez-faire system in the first place, free of regulatory checks and balances. If a person falls prey to an email scam, the blame is deservedly placed on the hapless person. Society feels pity for them, but nobody feels the government should reimburse the individual for their lack of caution. The person in this scenario has affected no one but themselves. If a person falls prey to a too-good-to-be-true subprime mortgage and ends up bankrupt, he or she is not just hurting themselves, they are also hurting society, because that debt inevitably rests with the populace. Thus, while a person has no social responsibility to act a certain way in the case of the email scam, a person does have a social obligation when it comes to actions that can hurt society, such as taking on a subprime mortgage. The counter-argument here is that people perceive banks as possessing a certain level of trustworthiness, and that it is unreasonable to expect people to have their too-good-to-be-true radar active when dealing with banks. Nevertheless, people do have an ethical obligation to be aware of pitfalls, and being told it's okay by trustworthy institutions is simply not a sufficient excuse. Banks have a responsibility to protect their customers and to look out for the general economic health of not just their company, but of the entire industry. The American banks failed in these considerations in each of these regards. First, they offered mortgages to millions of ill-qualified buyers who were clearly not going to be able to fulfill the requirements of the mortgage to make the loans viable. Individual lenders acted selfishly, exploiting very relaxed lending policies to benefit their own finances. Second, banks failed to look after the health of their own companies. This is not a failure of individual bankers, but a failure of those in management positions. Many US companies that need a multi-billion-dollar bailout are an unmitigated disaster. Although this failure falls more in line with the email scam, that is to say, a failure which is not a social failure, but a business failure, the social failure lies in the bank's obligations to the entire industry and the economy as a whole. Each bank is responsible for a small piece of the economic pie. If one bank fails, it appears as a blip on the radar. However, with each individual failure, the threshold for failure for the remaining companies is lowered. It is in this sense that companies have a moral obligation to do good business, because if they do not, they raise the chances of bankruptcy for each of their competitors and the economy as a whole. Eventually, the threshold of failure is so low that almost all lending has to cease, and a recession is ignited. In this investigation of blame placing, arguably the body who holds the most responsibility is the American government. The truth is that if people are not protected from themselves by the government, society cannot function well. The wholly free market is akin to an economic version of Hobbes' state of nature. People acting like tigers and bears, trying to get each other's money. Society does not work optimally when it pays overwhelming dividends for people who act selfishly. It takes regulation in economic policy to force people into acting in society's best interests. One of the duties of a government is to protect its citizens from each other, and in this case, the American government has failed catastrophically. Defenders of the free market will claim that this recession is simply a temporary bump in the road for what is arguably the greatest economic power in world history. They will claim that the free market is in the best interests of everyone, despite its rather unsightly undercarriage. In response, it can be argued that the bumps in the road are symptomatic of a system in need of healing by means of regulation. Unfortunately, American culture is such that any regulation is seen as government interference in private affairs, and such intervention conflicts with American ideals. Economics is not the only arena where this belief system is played out. Americans continue to allow their poorest citizens to live without proper health care, and they put the burden of the cost of higher education directly on students. Many European countries fully subsidize higher education. Until this distaste for government intervention is cast aside, events like the subprime mortgage crisis will continue to occur. Whether they are merely bumps on the economic road or signs of forthcoming systemic collapse, in both cases the government has failed to fulfill their role to save the citizens from themselves. In regard to subprime mortgages, regulation of banking is like an insurance policy for the economy. It may lower profits, insurance policies cost money, but it smooths out the bumps in the road. As long as the American government continues to turn a blind eye to these insurance policies, they will continue to put the social well-being of its citizens at risk.
All right, so that is a passage 3, and I see Dunyu asking, why is this one really long, guys? It's actually not. It's about 700 words. The passages in the academic reading range between 600 and 750 words. So you can't get one that is this long, okay? The time it took this reader with me going through the slides is about 7 minutes. So you still have about 12, 13 minutes for the questions. Same thing, Gary Brar. It's not too long. You can definitely get a passage that is this long, especially if it's a passage number 3, okay? So some of the paragraphs here were cut onto 2 slides so that you have the right size of letters. All right, so we are looking at our next question type here, which is matching features. By the way, before we look at this, when you're reading a passage where you think, wow, this is really difficult, I don't understand anything, don't panic, calm down, okay? Just think about what you do understand. Don't focus on what you don't understand so much, all right? In this passage, the author states that there are basically 3 different bodies responsible for the economic problems in the U.S. Did anybody catch who is responsible for the economic problems of 2008 in the U.S.? So did anybody catch that information? So Mohammed says the individual is responsible, the government is responsible. You're right, Mohammed, that's 2 out of 3. After Kumar says, well, it's the governments, the banks, and the individuals. Good. So a lot of you understood that information, okay? I'm going to show you, when you're reading something that seems a little bit difficult, how to help yourself with critical thinking to understand it better. Okay, so, governments are responsible. Then ask the question, why? So why is the government responsible? What is the government doing or not doing that creates an economic crisis? So what does the government actually do? Okay, and clearly you want to ask the same questions for banks and individuals. What are they doing or what are they not doing that leads to the economic crisis? So start with one, start with the top. What's the government doing or not doing? Miriam says people are inexperienced, kind of. You want to be a little bit more focused in your answer, Miriam. So what kind of policies, okay? So Opt Sebastian says, well, it's because of deregulation. That's right. So the government is deregulating. It's not regulating the banks. It's not controlling the banks enough. So then what happens with these very loose policies allowing the banks to do what they want? The banks then get greedy. And what do the banks do? The banks start lending lots of money. Well, who are they lending money to? They're lending money to people. What are they doing wrong? Well, they're lending money that people can't pay back. What are the people doing wrong? They're borrowing money that they can't pay back. So as long as you can understand that much from this passage, you should be able to do fairly well on the questions, okay? Don't panic, all right? So I can see that a lot of you have some good ideas and you're giving some good answers. So if you caught that information from the reading, the rest of it, you can figure out a lot. So don't panic, just focus on the questions. Okay, let's look at matching features type question and some strategies that will help you with this type of question, okay? So here, let's look at the question first. Okay, so this is a typical kind of matching features. So here, reading passage 3 refers to 3 parties responsible for the economic crisis. Hey, look at that. We just talked about it. And it also suggests the reasons why they're at fault. Wow, we just talked about that too. Okay, so again, don't panic. A lot of it is logical. So match the reasons in the table below with the responsible parties. So here in this type of question, you're given 2 or more options. And then you have a table like this. Usually, of course, it's longer. There's 5, 6 questions or blanks. And then you have to match the correct terms with the correct blanks. So that's why it's called matching features, okay? So let's have a look at a couple strategies that will help you with this. Excuse me. All right. So strategy 1 or tip 1 here, pay attention. These questions usually come from one or more parts of the passage. So for this type of question, it's really important that you use that critical analytical reading skill and you understand the what, why, how for the whole passage. And also you understand the what, why, how for individual paragraphs. Again, with this kind of question, it's virtually impossible to skim or scan for the answers. They're paraphrased and they can be anywhere in the passage or come from various different pieces of information in the passage that you need to understand together, okay? So skimming, scanning, not effective for these. Critical reading is effective for these, okay? Pay attention to comparisons, all right? So as you saw, there are 3, in this case, parties, individuals, banks, and government. So pay attention where the passage compares people to banks, banks to governments, what one does, what the other does, what one is responsible for. When you see this type of question, oftentimes it's a comparison and contrast, okay? Now, of course, pay attention to column headings, just like in table completion type questions. So the column headings will give you a good idea of what you should be looking at. Okay, we'll look at that in a second. And again, the information choice is usually not paraphrased for every word, so sometimes you can match up the words, but because it's coming from different parts of the passage, it's hard to do, okay? So here, if you look at the table before you read the passage, okay, you can look at these kinds of questions before you read the passage because all of this information is coming from the passage. So this is one of the question types that you can definitely read. It's a good idea to read this question before you read the passage because you identify 3 key points that the passage is talking about and reasons for those points, okay? So here you have reasons and you have party. Pay attention to those column headings, all right? So here, again, using logic. Logic is very powerful here. Acted selfishly to make more money. So who is acting selfishly to make more money? Home buyers, bankers, or the government? What do you think? So after it says it's got to be B, Mohammed says, yeah, banks. I mean, not to be too cliche here, but most people will agree that if we ask who is the greediest of all of these, maybe the bankers, could be the government, definitely one of these two, but bankers and lenders in this scenario are definitely the ones who stand to make a lot of money. So yeah, absolutely, B is a good choice here. Okay, and then the next one, we're not skeptical enough of loan offers. So here, you're probably thinking, okay, what does this word mean, right? We're not skeptical enough of loan offers. So let's say I don't know this word. Okay, what should I do? No problem, I'm just going to read it without the word. We're not enough of loan offers. So not enough something of loan offers. All right, well, even if I don't understand this word, by using logic again, I can figure out that the answer here is most likely home buyers. So I choose it, I put it in there, and I stick with it, and then I move on. Does anybody know what the word skeptical means? What does skeptical mean? Let's see how some of you are doing with your vocabulary practice. So what does the word skeptical mean? Again, when you're finding new words in your reading, make sure you add it to your vocabulary learning. Doubtful is okay. Okay, so doubtful is okay. That's right. That's exactly what I was looking for, Nargiza. So Nargiza says being critical. Yeah, being skeptical and being critical are actually very close synonyms. So being critical means asking what, why, how. Okay? Again, critical thinking, not just for IELTS, but for the rest of your life. If somebody says, hey, I'll give you $1 million to buy a house at a very, very comfortable 2.9% compounding interest for the next 25 years, you should immediately think, wait a second, slow down. What are you giving me? Why are you giving me that? How am I going to pay that back to you? And then you'll suddenly realize that, wait a second, that means you're giving me $1 million, but in the next 25 years, I'm going to pay you back $1.8 million. It's a pretty good deal for them, maybe not such a good deal for you, okay? So, again, use that critical thinking. Skeptical is critical, all right? So skeptical, doubtful. Yeah, and that's going to be individuals, all right? Again, now that you see the question, you're thinking, hey, the passage seemed very tough, but yeah, I can solve these questions, okay? Now, in our online course, you can, of course, have an interactive quiz here. So this is what it looks like, but you can't do it in the slides, so don't worry about it. And then always check when you're studying at home to see where is this information coming from. So for question 1, it shows you that the answer is coming from this part of the text. Individual lenders acted selfishly, exploiting very relaxed lending policies to benefit their own finances. So banks and lenders. Now you have to be careful not to confuse the individual here. It's the lenders that's the key. Okay? All right. So bankers and lenders is the answer for the first one. The second one is coming from this paragraph. It comes from this example of the too good to be true mortgage. Subprime too good to be true is an expression in English. Always be careful. So must be skeptical. And here you can even find the word skeptical in the passage. So that will help you, but careful, it's not good to try to match up words between questions and the passage. Okay, so that was A, home buyers. Okay, so moving right on into the next question type. This is yes, no, not given. Now, yes, no, not given questions are pretty much the exact same thing as true, false, not given, okay? So it even states here, this question is very similar to true, false, not given. You use the same strategies, okay? So the one big mistake that I've seen students make sometimes with the yes, no, not given is in the answer sheet. So let me get you back on screen here in a second. It's that 30-minute pause on the camera seems to like to take a blink. All right, so the most common, one of the most common mistakes that I've seen with yes, no, not given questions is for yes, no, not given in the answer sheet. So let's say it's question number 10. Okay, in your answer sheet, remember in the reading, you're writing directly into the answer sheet. It's a yes, no, not given question, and the student figures out that the answer is yes, and then they write true. Okay? It's sad, but IELTS will mark that wrong, okay? True is not equal to yes, no, not given. And somebody sent me an email a while ago, said, oh, I accidentally answered true, false, not given for yes, no, not given in the answer sheet. You're going to get that wrong, okay? So if it's yes, no, not given, then you can write yes, no, not given, or you can write yes, no, and not given. Okay, not given obviously is the one that stays the same. If it's true, false, not given, you can write T and you can write F. Don't write Y, don't write N. Okay, so don't make that confusion. Pay close attention to the question. Okay, don't make a silly mistake because then you're just wasting marks and that's not good. All right. So having said that, hopefully we have some students returning from the class on Sunday. What's one of the best strategies for true, false, not given, or yes, no, not given? So let's see who paid attention 2 days ago when we looked at true, false, not given questions. So what should I do if I have this true, false, not given type of question? So Do Nguyen says, well, ask questions first. Yeah, Jignesh says, ask some questions from yourself. So the first question that you should ask is it important? Yeah. If it's important, then it's going to be yes or no in this case. Okay, so if you say, yes, this is important, then the answer will be yes or no. Is it important for the topic or for the topic and controlling idea, right? So that's the question that you're asking. Okay, we'll practice this in a second. If you missed that class a couple days ago, don't worry, it will make sense in a second here. So yeah, you look at the statement, then you say, is this important for the topic and the controlling idea of this passage? If you realize that, yeah, it looks like it is important, then it's going to be yes or no. If you realize that I don't think this information is important for this passage, then it's going to be not given. Okay? And if you realize that it's important, then the second question you ask yourself is this information true or is it false? If it's true, the answer will be yes. If it's false, the answer will be no. Okay? And I'm very happy to see that there are some students who remembered this from a couple days ago. Jubilant James, you're absolutely right. Don't read this question before the passage. Too many students do that, and it leads to confusion and getting wrong answers. Okay? So, strategy 1, be careful of not given. You cannot search for that, okay? You will waste way too much time. Obviously, you can't search for information that's not there. You'll just get frustrated. That's why it's really a bad strategy to skim or scan for these types of questions, okay? Visualization is very powerful for figuring out if something's not given. If you're able to visualize the passage and what you're reading, then when you get to the yes, no, not given, if you say, wait a second, I didn't see anything like that in my mind when I was reading, it's probably because you never read it. It wasn't given. Okay? And again, use your own knowledge. So if you know that the answer is not possible, then it's going to be either no or not given. Okay? IELTS does not lie. Okay? So if you know it's not possible, it will either be no or not given. If you know it is possible and it's true, then it's going to be yes or not given. Okay? One of those two. All right? So here we go. Yes, no, not given. Couple of examples. Do the following statements agree with the claims of the writer in reading passage 3? So the question reads a little bit different than true, false, not given, but it's basically the same, okay? Just follow the same strategies, use the same type of logic, except provide the different yes and no instead of the true and false, okay? So if the statement agrees with the claims of the writer, it's yes. If a statement contradicts, if it's impossible to say what the writer thinks about this, then it's not given. Okay. So, number one, many home buyers are too young and irresponsible. Is this information important for the collapse of the American economic system? So that's what you should be asking, okay? The question here is it important to know that many home buyers are young and irresponsible? What do you think? So Sammy says, no, I don't think so. Is it true? Okay, let's approach this another way. So let's apply one of those other strategies. So is it true that many home buyers are young and irresponsible? So is it true in the real world that many home buyers are too young and irresponsible when they're buying a house? Let's see what you think about that. Okay, got some debatable information there. So some of you are saying, yeah, it's true. Baljit says, no, it's a lie. Jigna says, no. So look at that. A lot of you say, no, yes, maybe. In this case, the answer is probably no, right? People buy homes at all different ages, in all different ways, all different types of homes. Sure, there is maybe a little bit of a bigger group between 30 and 40 these days, but they're definitely not overly young these days, and I don't know if they're irresponsible when dealing with that much money. So people are usually quite careful when they buy a house. It's not like buying a car or something else. So the answer to this one is no. So this one would either be no or not given, right? Now, the first strategy that we said, is it important to know whether they're young or irresponsible? And many of you said, nah, we don't need to know that. So the answer has to be not given. I agree with you. I think that's irrelevant. It's not key information for this. So it's not given. Now, let's apply the third strategy to this. Okay, what was the third strategy? So I showed you another strategy for this. What can you do? So we asked, is it important for this topic? And we said, nah, so it's probably not given. We asked, is it true? We said, no, it's probably not true. So it's either no or not given. Still kind of siding with not given. What else can I do to be confident that this is not given? And I'm not just guessing, but I'm confident that it's not given. What else can I do for this question? There is one other point. Jubilant James, yeah, you're right. Logic is another one. It's not what I mentioned in the strategy. Guessing, well, if you've reduced it to no or not given, you have a 50-50. Critical thinking, we've already applied it, Mohammed, because asking, is it important for this topic and controlling idea, is critical thinking. It's not what I'm thinking of. What I'm actually thinking of is visualization. Okay, don't forget about that beautiful skill of visualization. That's right, Sammy. So here, you could ask yourself, if you're using visualization, so you're seeing information as you read, you could ask yourself, did I see a young home buyer? So when we were reading the passage, and hopefully many of you were seeing pictures in your head of these banks, these individuals, somebody using their email with the email scam, the government giving bags and bags of money to the banks for bailouts. So did you see anywhere in those pictures in your mind this young guy in his 20s or this young woman in her 20s going to the bank and going, yeah, I'll take $1 million loan. Sure, give me that big bag of money. I'm going to buy a house. See you guys later. I didn't see anything like that. I didn't see anything like that, and hopefully you didn't either, because we didn't read anything like that. So among those three strategies, you should definitely reach 100% level of confidence that this is a not given. Okay? So, and don't confuse it with other information, bottom hunk. So, if your nephew did it at 17, don't think about that. So focus only on the information that you're reading. Try to shut other information out of your mind, okay? All right, let's look at the second one here. So, those that fall for common scams deserve to be compensated by society. Okay? So, is it important to know for this passage whether or not if people fall for some kind of a cheat, some kind of a scam, that society should give them back money? Is that important for economic crisis? So Sweta says no, Sakari says no, Data says maybe, Mohammed says maybe. Here, if I'm doing the IELTS, honestly, for this one, I might be quick to say, no, that's not important, so it's probably not given. Okay, I might be quick to say that. But in this case, I know that I'm going to make a mistake. Okay, so maybe is okay. If your answer is maybe, then you might be in trouble. You have to do a little bit of searching. But here, one of the other three strategies helps me to get this information. So if I'm stuck between it's important, yes it is, no it's not important, it's not given, maybe it's not, I don't know. One of the other strategies helps me. Which strategy helps me here? Which strategy is very useful for me to help me figure out the answer here? Jignesh says the second one. Which strategy are we talking about here? Which is the second one? Alien Eater says visualization strategy will help you with this. That's right, Alien Eater. I agree with you. Why do you say that, Alien Eater? So why, again, does visualization provide me with the ability to solve this answer? And I think that a lot of you, skimming is not going to help you. Definitely, especially for this one, because nowhere in the passage is the sentence exactly like this. Okay? But visualization, so trying to see information while I'm reading, will definitely help me. Okay? The scam word is in the passage. That's right, Jignesh. What should I have seen? Well, here we go. I'm going to have to do a little bit of hop back here. But I remembered it was quite early on here. Just give me a moment because I visualized it. So I know very well where I'm coming from. Okay? I think one of you just put it up there as well. Did I just catch one of you? Here we go. So have a look at this example. Whenever you have an example in your reading passage, you must visualize, okay? You must visualize examples. Very, very, very important to visualize examples as you're reading them. That's why it's an example. Your examples in your writing, task 2, should be the same, easy to visualize. So, one more back here, just a moment. Okay, let me see. Here, what I was looking for is this one here, the email scam. Okay, so although this falls in line more with the email scam, what I'm looking for here in the passage is where it describes to me the email scam. I'm just not sure exactly where it was, but I do remember visualizing this email scam where it basically states, here we go. Okay, this is what I was looking for. So if a person falls prey to an email scam, notice why it's tricky to search for the word scam, because it actually appears more than once. The blame is deservedly placed on the hapless person. So this example, while you read, you should be visualizing, okay? You should imagine that there's this poor person, guy or girl, or even visualize yourself, who just sent $1,000 to some weird bank account because they said that you just won the lottery. All you need to do is send them $1,000. And you did this, and now you're really angry. You just lost $1,000. What's going on? Who's going to help me? Who's going to give me my money back? This is fraud email, scam email. Nobody's going to give you your money back. It's your problem that you didn't pay attention and investigate and make sure that it's not a scam, right? So that's what this example is saying, and you should be visualizing it. Now, if you did that, and this is not difficult reading, so much of the passage is fairly high level. It's about a first-year college text level. But this particular example, most of you, I mean, if you're trying to get 6.5, should be able to understand and visualize that, okay? So now you know from visualization that that question is definitely given. Okay, so the question is definitely given. So what you need to decide now, is it true or is it false? And of course you have to say yes or no. So those that fall for common scams deserve to be compensated by society. Common scams are email scams in this case, right? So you know it's given, so it's important. So it's either yes or no. So then, of course, the question here is, according to the author. Okay, remember, this is according to the author, according to the writer. So according to the writer, does a person who falls for a common scam deserve to be compensated by society? So should society give back the loss of money? No, right? The author says everybody in society seems to say that, nope, that's your problem, that's your mistake. Nobody's going to give you the money back. We'll feel sorry for you and we'll say how terrible, but no, okay? So nobody feels responsible for it. So the answer is going to be no, or just a simple N. All right? That's why so many people in the States were angry, because banks got billions of dollars even though they made a mistake. But as an individual, you don't get money back if you lose it. That's unfortunate. Maybe if they catch the person and they can get your money back, that way yes, but otherwise no. Okay, again, there's an interactive quiz. So here you have the answer. So the first one was not given, okay? So it's not given anywhere about the irresponsible young borrower, obviously. And then for question 2, there it is. The answer is looking at the same example that I just showed you. And here's the answer. It's no, okay? So that's how you solve that. So again, just remember, yes, no, not given, very, very similar to true, false, not given. Use the same strategies. They will work for you. And practice these at home. It seems easy when I show it to you here, and I know that sometimes students say, whoa, wait a second, when I tried that at home at first it was really not working all that well, but as soon as I started to figure it out, then it really, really helped a lot, okay? Multiple choice. All right. Multiple choice questions. A lot of students have asked. It's probably true, false, not given, and multiple choice are probably the two most hated questions on the IELTS reading. Students feel frustrated with these ones. But if you're using the right strategies, they're not that bad. Okay, strategy number 1 for multiple choice is the most important. I cannot emphasize this enough, okay? No, I think you're just looking at shading or shadow there, bottom hunk. It's actually kind of cool now. The weather's cooled off since the last month. But going back to the lesson, so strategy number 1 is use your brain, okay? Way too many students, when they have a multiple choice test, think that the exam or the test will give them answers, okay? They think that They look at the answer choices, and one of the answer choices will pop out at them and wave a little bit like an emoji and say, "Hello, I'm the correct answer. Choose me. You've recognized me. You've figured it out. You've identified me hiding in the other 3 questions, and I'm not hiding. Here I am," okay? So that's not a good way. Multiple choice answers don't generally pop out at students, okay? You have to use your own brain. So you have to use your own thinking. Don't even look at the choices, okay? So don't look at the choices. Instead, read the question, think about the answer, and then match up your answer with the closest possible choice, okay? So the answers are often logical. If you have trouble, try reading the answer together with the question. We'll have a look at that in a second. This is actually a strategy. Don't change your answers. So for multiple choice, never change your answers. Research shows that students more often than not will change correct answers to incorrect answers. So never ever change your multiple choice answers. Okay. If there's a name or a number in the question, you might be able to skim read for them and find it easily. Okay. But again, use your brain. Don't be tricked into using the choices. So here you have this question. Which of the following phrases best describes the main aim of reading passage 3? Okay, so without reading the choices, okay, so without reading the possible choices, I'm going to try to cover them up a little bit here with my body so you're not hoping to catch it from the choices there. What do you think is the main aim of the passage? So reading passage 3, what is the main aim in your own words? So in your own words, what do you think is the main goal of this reading passage 3? Should be fairly easy. Don't use your gut feeling, alien eater. Use your brain. Intuition is not as accurate as people think it is. Okay? So Pachu says it is about the economic collapse. Jignesh says it describes the American crisis. Naveen says it talks about the remedies of the crisis. Jubilant James, good. You're giving me a nice big sentence there. The factors causing the financial crisis and strategies to overcome it. Miriam giving a little bit more information. Governments should keep an eye on banking. Okay, so my answer is the 2008 American financial crisis was caused primarily by government, by banks, and by individuals, each in their own way. Okay, so that's going to be my answer here. All right, let's see if any of these match closely to what I just said or what some of you just said, okay? So A, to suggest that every person and company needs to be responsible to each other. Okay, that's kind of close. To suggest that people need to stop trusting banks, I don't know. That doesn't really match with what I just said or with what most of you just said. To suggest that the recession is the fault of the American government alone, I definitely did not say that because I said banks and individuals are responsible as well. D, to suggest that the American government needs to bail out companies when they need the money. Well, that's definitely a kind of a piece of it. So A, B, C, or D, which one was closest to what we said? Alien Eater says it's A. Praveen says A. Jignesh says A. Yeah, I think A. That's what we said, that individuals, banks, and the American government all need to be responsible for a stable economy. If they're not, it's going to collapse. So I'm going to go with A because it's the closest match to what I said, that the American economic collapse was a responsibility of banks, individuals and governments, so persons and companies, okay? So I'm going to stay with that one, and I'm not going to change it. Maybe it's wrong, maybe not. Okay, here you have a quiz in your phone or your tablet if you're using the course online. And here you have the answer. Let me go back a little bit here so that you can see why this question is difficult. So this is a difficult multiple choice question because there's no one place where you can find this answer. But if you read the overall passage, then you can figure it out. And again, this is why you need to focus on your own knowledge in your own brain and not think that the answer will pop out at you from the slide. Okay? So here are the different pieces of information that let you know that indeed companies and people have a responsibility toward each other to avoid this. So there's that theme of responsibility, the key word being responsibility. So the answer indeed is A. So we were correct in our thinking there. Okay? So again, that's how you do multiple choice. You need to make sure that you practice that again at home. All right? I got a little bit more to show you for the reading section here, so just bear with me. And then on Thursday, we're going to start with the writing section in these online course sessions. So just bear with me for a couple of important points here. Okay, so over the last 2 weeks, I showed you a lot of different skills and strategies for the reading section. The 3 big ones that I showed you were paraphrasing, critical thinking, and visualization, and you need to practice those. Then I showed you power reading. Power reading separates comprehension in reading and fluency in reading and then combines them, okay? You need to practice these skills to get a high IELTS band score, all right? Then I showed you different specific strategies for the 11 different question types in the reading. I showed you that there are some questions that you can read before the passage, good idea to read before the passage, and there are some questions that are not good to read before the passage because they're confusing. Now, it's really important to remember that many of these skills and strategies that I showed you, you practice when you're getting ready for IELTS. So you practice these skills before you sit the IELTS so that when you're sitting the IELTS, your brain is able to use them quickly and efficiently, okay? Now, of course, there are some skills that you want to use during the IELTS exam, okay? I'm not sure, Dota, why you can't register on the website. Maybe you already used your email. Send me an email and I'll check it out, okay? Send me an email with what you're trying to register with and I'll take a look. All right, so one of the big ones, a lot of students say, there's not enough time in the reading section. They say 1 hour is not enough for 3 passages and 40 questions. It's not true, okay? If you cannot get 6.5 or 7 in 1 hour of reading approximately 2,100 words, around 2,000 words. Okay, so the 3 passages together is about 2,000 words, and you have 40 questions. If you can't do that in 1 hour, you're going to have almost an impossible time in university if you're studying in English. Again, remember, I said this in previous classes, if you're a full-time student in a university in Canada or US, you have to read about 150 pages every week, okay? And of course, you have exams and quizzes on that information. There's no way that you can keep that tempo if you're not able to do this in 1 hour. So the question here is, okay, what should I do? How do I use my time effectively? Well, number one is Don't skim and scan. Skimming and scanning does not save you time. It wastes time. Questions like true, false, not given, matching features, yes, no, not given, they multiple choice. They basically make skimming and scanning an impossible strategy for the IELTS for high scores. Okay, so scanning, skimming for answers wastes time. Okay, don't use that. Instead, use the other strategies that I showed you in the past couple of weeks. All right. If you're having trouble reading the text in under 10 minutes, you need to increase your reading fluency. Okay? The way you increase your reading fluency, of course, is by reading more and by pushing yourself to read faster. I showed you that with power reading, okay? So improve your speed, improve your comprehension, use that power reading exercise that I showed you, and then combine those skills, okay? So remember power reading. Don't forget about that. If you missed that class, join the full course or check it out in the video list on the channel. Again, reminding you, skimming and scanning won't work. Pay attention to the questions that you can read before the passage and that you shouldn't. That will maximize your time, so you're not wasting time reading confusing questions needlessly. Matching sentence endings, true, false, not giving, matching features, yes, no, not given, and multiple choice. These ones you should not be reading before the passage. Okay, so this is the green to do here. So what should you do? Review these kinds of questions before the passage. Matching information, table completion, summary completion. Finding paragraph headings is a unique one, okay? Stay calm. Read all the passage. Don't flip pages. I hate seeing students go squirrel crazy in the reading part of IELTS when I see them flipping back and forth. So when I see students going like this with the pages and reading, I almost know for sure that they're not going to be able to score over 6.5, okay? Alien Eater, can you read aloud when you're reading? No, you cannot read aloud when you're reading so that other students can hear you, okay? If you're in the exam room with several other students, it would be extremely frustrating and annoying if everybody was reading aloud, okay? So you can only read silently using your internal voice, okay? Now again, stay calm, don't panic, okay? Don't skim. Okay, again, a reminder of questions to read before and after the passage. Don't confuse these. We show you this in the course again and again because way too many students focus on the questions before they read the passage, and that's not good. Okay, just again, this is what you're doing during the test. Make sure you read the question instructions. IELTS can change from time to time, so if you haven't taken IELTS in a while, you might be surprised to see a new type of question or a new way to read the question, okay? So read the whole question before you start answering. It's very important, okay? If you're not sure about questions, paraphrase them. That will actually save you time rather than getting frustrated and jumping around, okay? Answer questions in order, so don't jump around. If you're not sure about the answers, skip it, and if you have time at the end, come back. If not, come back and guess, okay? Never change answers. That will save you time. So sometimes students waste a lot of time in the reading because they're changing their answers all over the place. That's not good. You should ideally not be changing any of your answers. If for some chance you do, then maybe change one. But when I see students changing 5, 6 answers during their reading, I know that something's wrong, okay? So that shouldn't be happening. Using critical thinking, paraphrasing, visualization throughout the reading. Now, of course, you're not writing down what, why, how, but you're just doing that in your mind. That will help you. And here you're putting your answers directly into the answer sheet. So pay attention to spelling and pay attention to the question numbers. if you accidentally mess up on the question numbers, that can waste a lot of time. So it's a good idea every 5 to 10 questions maximum to look at the question in the question sheet, the number, look at the number in the answer sheet and make sure they're still matching up. Okay, I know it seems like a silly little piece of information, but it's actually quite important. All right, if you make a mistake early with your questions, your question numbers, and you have to erase 30 of your questions, that's going to take a lot of time. Okay. Dealing with difficult questions. So sometimes students ask me, well, what should I do if there are some really difficult questions? Okay. You can try to figure them out. You can focus on the noun, the subject noun, and the verb especially. That will give you the most information about the sentence, looking at the subject and the verb. You can try to match the verb and the noun with the information in the reading. Only do that if you have time left. Pay attention to joining words, however, therefore, those conjunctions, okay? Look at the tense. Is it past tense? Is it present perfect? Is it future participle will? That can help you, okay? Help your logic as well. Pay attention to negatives, especially negative antonym paraphrasing. And there's another really important point with dealing with difficult questions. Don't stress, don't panic, okay? Look at this little blue box here. Be confident. When you answer, believe in yourself, believe in your answer, and move on. Again, remember that IELTS is testing all the way from no English to expert English. A band 9 does not mean a native speaker. It means an expert English user, okay? It usually requires a first, second year university or college student, native speaker, to score a band 9. Remember that some of those difficult questions in the reading passage, they're usually the last questions. Those are designed for band 8, band 9 level users of English. If you don't know the answer, just do your best, take a guess, and move on, okay? You can still get a 7, 7.5. Don't freak out and don't panic, okay? Now, in the course, you have lots of quizzes. You have an interactive quiz as well that you can use to build these skills, okay? Again, apply these skills that you've learned during the test. And you should be okay. Practice does make perfect, especially for reading. So here in the course, you have another chance at going through the reading passages. I'm going to leave that for you. Again, really good idea to join the full online course. This is passage number 1. There's some more questions here that you can use. And then just trying to get to the last little bit here. There's more yes, no, not given. Let me see. There, that's what I wanted to get to. So here's a little bit of a conclusion about the reading section. So this is the end of the reading section. We've come to the end of this course session for the reading section. Of course, just like in the real IELTS, the next one will be about writing. We will start with writing task 1, discussing what it is, how it works, what you need to do. Again, if you're missed these classes, if you're still uncertain about some of these techniques, go back, review it, join the full course at aehelp.com, go through the course in your interactive online digital version, and you will be fine. Any questions about the reading section of IELTS? So anything that you feel I haven't covered that you're curious about? Tomorrow is a members chat session. Sadaf, you're asking me for a full reading section. I can do that. I can go through a full reading for tomorrow's class. Absolutely, sure, why not? Yes, this video will be on YouTube for a couple of weeks. Stylist, you can check out some of the previous classes that led up to this last one here. The next live session, Amia, will be on Thursday. So sorry, I shouldn't say that. The next live session is tomorrow, but tomorrow it's a members chat. Everybody can watch, but only members are able to chat. Okay, Jaideep Chahal is asking me how to correct our reading answers, by skimming or by reading the whole passage. Again, Jaideep, you need to read the passage to get high band scores, okay? You need to have good actual reading skills, reading comprehension. Jignesh, you'll find all that online. It doesn't work logically to implement all questions into this course flow. I think that's what you're asking. Satish, very good question. Do you have a clock in the exam hall to see your timing? Yes, they should have a clock in the IELTS exam center so that you can look at it. If not, it's a good idea to wear a wristwatch if you have one. Definitely don't have a phone with you. I believe they check to make sure that you don't have your phone with you, but you should not try to look at your phone for the time. So a wristwatch, but they should have a clock on the wall, absolutely. Okay. Stylist, again, go through those strategies in the reading section, and you'll notice that your timing will greatly improve, and you'll realize that 1 hour is a lot more than you used to think, okay? Kush, you can get membership on our YouTube channel by clicking the join button, and our website's the same thing. Click the big red button to join the full course at these websites, okay? All right. So there you go. Vegan Jeffrey says the time is projected on a huge screen. Now that might be in Taiwan, Jeffrey. Some test centers don't have the budget for that kind of projection, but they should have a large clock at least, for sure. Okay, all right, everyone. That's it for today. That's it for course sessions for the reading section. Thursday, we are going to pick it up with the writing. Tomorrow, I can do a full reading for the members chat. If everybody's okay with that, let me know, members who are watching. Jeffrey, you're the only one I saw in here today. So again, for tons and tons of help, visit us at ahelp.com for academic IELTS, www.gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Again, invest a little bit of money. You'll save a lot of money. You won't have to sit the IELTS exam again, and you'll be proud of yourself that you passed with good scores. Just make sure to use the course. Don't just buy it. Use it. Bye for now. Much love to everybody, and I wish you all a great rest of your day and wonderful sleep and nice dreams if it's late in your country. Bye for now.